More on the coronavirus situation now, and in a world first, Australian researchers have discovered people who've become infected with COVID-19 are immune from catching the disease again for at least 8 months. To tell us more, the lead researcher, Menno van Zelm from Monash University, joins us now. Good morning to you. Well, tell us what you have found here.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so what we studied in a collaboration on our precinct was the presence of immune memory after infection with the virus. And for us, not unsurprising, because we know from other viruses, this immunity lasts for a long time. And with the initial patients being infected 8 months ago, we can detect these immune memory cells for up to 8 months, and in such numbers that we are confident they will remain there for up to a year.
Well, could it be longer than a year? I mean, the 8 months is because that's the time frame that you had to work with. But what's the possibility that it could be much longer?
It could be much longer. It will, of course, depend on each individual. The kinetics of the responses we see now is that it will remain there for a long time. But of course, it can reach certain levels. If it's below certain levels, it might not be sufficient enough anymore. But that's something we will have to examine in further research.
There were some concerns that immunity didn't last that long. Can you tell us about that and what you've been seeing from others?
Yeah, so that's of course always hard to explain for lay audience. And what we see is that after 3 weeks, the antibody levels drop down. And that's what we typically see in immunological responses and what we call as a contraction of the immune response. So after the virus is cleared, the overshoot of antibodies are removed from the body. And of course, that could be interpreted as waning of immunity. What we see now is with the persistence of these memory cells is that really the immune response contracts, but memory persists.
What does that tell you about the possibility of the lasting effects of any vaccine?
Yeah, so that's the big question now. And we expect, of course, with all the results coming out now, that when vaccines are efficacious, they will induce similar types of responses. And then we'll have to test that, of course. But if it's the same, we expect that vaccine responses will last at least a year. And you might need 1 or 2 boosts, but not directly after.
What does this do to overall the treatment worldwide of COVID-19, keeping in mind that these certain strains can mutate in the future, but we don't really have any way of predicting that?
No, so we have seen variants already, and then we've seen that in the second wave here in Australia. The good news for the immune response side of things is that these viruses are similarly recognized, so we don't see any immune evasion, as we would call it. Of course, with so many cases worldwide and people having, of course, so many numbers of virus, the chance of it mutating is present. So we'll really need to keep a close eye on that. And hopefully with vaccines becoming available early, we can lower those numbers and thereby minimizing the risk of variation.
Menno van Zelm, just more broadly speaking, what do you make of the vaccines that have become available, much talked about, and the timeline that they might become rolled out in countries like Australia, but also around the world?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. I think we can all agree that's our only way out of this at this stage. We're doing a stellar job in Australia to keep those numbers down. I just heard again a double donut day in Victoria. That's of course great news. And the main thing now is to keep that up. And once the vaccine becomes available early next year, hopefully everybody will be convinced as well, get vaccinated, and then we can find our way out of this.
Menno van Zelm from Monash University, thank you, and keep us up to date with your work.
You're very welcome. We will do. Thank you very much for having me.